I thought I knew everything about my daughter until she said, "We got married yesterday." And just like that, my world tilted sideways. I never considered myself a dramatic person. I like routine. The soft hum of morning coffee brewing, the faint smell of toast in the kitchen, my quiet little home in the middle of a bustling city. At 52, I prided myself on knowing my life, knowing my daughter, and knowing what to expect. But that morning, everything changed. I was sitting at the small wooden table in my kitchen, sipping on chamomile tea, wearing my favorite lavender cardigan, hair still damp from a quick shower. My mind wandered through mundane thoughts, the grocery list, the bills I needed to sort, maybe calling my neighbor about the mail mix-up, but then my phone buzzed. My daughter's name flashed across the screen. Mom, her voice, normally bright and cheerful, sounded oddly restrained, almost nervous. That instantly set me on edge. "Yes, sweetheart? What's up?" I asked, tilting the phone to get a better angle of her voice. I have news," she said, hesitating. I smiled, thinking she'd be telling me about a new project, or maybe a promotion at work. "Okay, tell me." Then he spoke. My son-in-law. The man I'd met only a few times, polite but distant, calm yet unnervingly confident. "We got married yesterday." Time froze. The mug of tea I had just lifted hovered midair. My mind stumbled over itself, trying to process the words. Yesterday? Married? How could this happen without me knowing? I laughed nervously, thinking perhaps it was a joke. "Wait, what? You're serious?" "Yes," he said, calm, measured, almost coldly. My hands tightened around the phone. My chest thumped against my ribs, a drumbeat of disbelief and rising panic. But why? Why didn't anyone tell me? My daughter sighed, and I could hear the faint tremor in her voice. "Mom, I didn't want to upset you. I thought it would be easier if you found out after." Easier? My heart clenched. Easier? The words echoed in my head. I'd imagined this day countless times in my mind. A warm afternoon, laughter, a small family gathering, maybe a celebratory hug. Not this ambush, this betrayal by omission. I glanced around my kitchen, suddenly noticing every detail, the chipped corner of the wooden table, the steam rising from my tea, the faint hum of the refrigerator. Everything seemed smaller, suffocating somehow. My phone felt heavier, like it carried the weight of the news itself. I don't understand," I whispered. "We never talked about this. Not once." "You never had to," he said. The calmness in his voice made my blood boil. Not rude, not cruel, but that quiet, steady confidence. It was infuriating. I thought about my daughter, my little girl who once ran to me with secrets, scraped knees, and small triumphs. Could she really have kept something this monumental hidden from me? My throat tightened, a lump forming that made it hard to speak. "Mom, please," her voice was gentle, almost pleading. I wanted you to be happy for me. I didn't want to ruin the moment." Happiness? I wanted to shout that happiness wasn't the point. The secrecy, the audacity of dropping this revelation without warning, that was what mattered. But I swallowed my anger. I needed to hear the story. I had to understand how this had happened. So she began, stumbling at first, then gaining momentum, explaining the whirlwind events of yesterday, a rushed decision, a few frantic calls to relatives, a last-minute venue booking, the mix of laughter and tears. She spoke as if narrating a dream she had just woken from, her words rushed and chaotic. As I listened, I tried to imagine the scene, her excitement, the nervous smiles, the hurried exchanges. The story was impulsive, reckless even, but it was theirs. And no matter how shocked I was, I realized I couldn't undo it. Yet, even as she spoke, my eyes, or rather my mind, kept returning to him. That calm, measured man, dropping this bomb as though it were ordinary news. His composure felt deliberate, almost rehearsed. The audacity of it burned. Was this planned? Calculated? Or just impulsive madness? I took a shaky breath. Strength, I reminded myself. Strength is not the absence of fear, but the courage to face it head-on. I had to face them both, the whirlwind of change and the unexpected challenge to my trust and expectations. And in that moment, as I sat there with my phone trembling in my hand, I realized life would never be quite the same. My daughter had crossed a line, my son-in-law had crossed an even bigger one, and I was left standing in the rubble, picking up the pieces. But I was ready to confront, to question, to understand. And perhaps, most importantly, to survive the shock without losing myself in the process. "You're unusually quiet today, Jenna. Is something bothering you?" My daughter's voice cut through the clinking of silverware, startling me. I hadn't realized I was just staring at my plate, pushing peas from one side to the other like a child avoiding vegetables. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The truth was, I wasn't fine. Ever since those words, "We got married yesterday," rang in my ears, everything around me felt slightly off-kilter, like my world had tilted just enough to make me dizzy. The day had started as any other. I'd woken early, brewed my strong black coffee, and watched the neighborhood kids run to the bus stop from my kitchen window. A comforting ritual, one that usually grounded me. The sun had spilled through the curtains, painting the counters in soft gold. Everything smelled of toast and laundry detergent. Normal. Safe. But inside, I couldn't shake the unease. Every familiar thing, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floorboards under my slippers, felt like it carried a secret I wasn't yet privy to. By evening, the house was alive with chatter again. My daughter, Amelia, was bustling around, and her husband, my son-in-law, sat at the head of the table, carving the roast with quiet precision. He looked calm. Too calm. His hands steady, his smile polite. As if nothing earth-shattering had been said just days earlier. "Mom, could you pass the salt?" Amelia asked, breaking into my thoughts again. I nodded, sliding it across the table, but my eyes lingered on him. How could he sit there, carving meat so neatly, when I still hadn't processed what he had dropped on me like a bomb? Dinner continued, but I felt the cracks beneath the surface. Amelia laughed too loudly at his jokes, glancing at him with a look I couldn't quite read. Admiration? Or desperation? And his eyes flicked to me once, briefly, as though testing if I was going to bring it up again. The wedding. The secret union. The betrayal of not telling me. Instead, I stayed silent. My fork scraped the plate, the sound harsher than it should have been. Inside, my thoughts whirred. Why the secrecy? Why didn't my own daughter tell me? What are they hiding? After dinner, while Amelia washed dishes, I lingered at the doorway, drying my hands with a towel. "Are you sure everything's all right, Mom?" she asked, glancing at me. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were searching. I almost told her. Almost let it all out. The confusion, the sting of being left out, the gnawing suspicion. But instead, I said, "Just tired, dear. Long day." Her relief was too quick, too rehearsed. As if she'd been bracing for the question. Later that night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but the silence pressed on me like a weight. That one moment at the dinner table replayed again and again, his eyes, that flicker of something unspoken. It wasn't guilt, exactly. It was more like calculation. What if this wasn't just about a wedding? What if there was something bigger, something darker that I wasn't supposed to know yet? The thought chilled me. And yet, another thought whispered in the back of my mind. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm seeing shadows where there are none. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't just paranoia. There was a truth lurking beneath their smiles, waiting to surface. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found an envelope on the counter. No name, no return address. Just a thick, cream-colored envelope with my name written in bold, unfamiliar handwriting. My hands trembled as I picked it up. "Good morning, Mom," Amelia said cheerfully behind me, startling me so much I almost dropped it. I turned quickly, hiding the envelope under a newspaper. "Morning," I muttered, my voice uneven. She didn't seem to notice. She just poured her coffee, humming under her breath. But I knew. Whatever was inside that envelope wasn't ordinary mail. It was connected. connected to them, to the secret, to the hidden truth. And for the first time, I felt certain my family was keeping something from me. Something that could change everything. We didn't tell you because we knew you'd ruin it. Those words hit me harder than any physical blow ever could. My daughter's voice, steady, cold, deliberate, still rang in my ears as if she'd just said it. I never thought I'd hear that kind of accusation from my own child. But that's exactly how the truth came out. That morning, when I finally opened the envelope in the quiet of my room, I hadn't been prepared for what I saw. Inside were photographs. My daughter and my son-in-law, smiling, holding hands, dressed in wedding attire I had never seen. No guests. No family. Just the two of them. At first, my heart clenched with sadness. But as I flipped through the photos, I noticed something else. Their smiles didn't look natural. Forced. Especially hers. Amelia's eyes had that guarded look, the one she used to wear as a child when she was lying about something small, like stealing cookies. I knew then that whatever reason they had for keeping me in the dark, it wasn't just oversight. It was intentional. That evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. We were sitting in the living room, the TV on low, but none of us really watching. I turned to Amelia, my fingers gripping the armrest so hard my knuckles ached. "Why didn't you tell me about the wedding?" My voice was sharper than I'd intended, but I didn't care. She froze, her glass of water halfway to her lips. Slowly, she set it down. Her husband, Daniel, spoke first. His tone was calm, too calm. "We thought it was better this way. Less complicated." "Less complicated?" I snapped. "I'm your mother, Amelia. I deserve to be there. To witness your vows. How could you think excluding me would make anything simpler?" Amelia's jaw tightened. Then came those words, bitter as poison. "Because you'd ruin it." The silence that followed was unbearable. My chest felt hollow, my breath shallow. "Ruin it?" I whispered. "You think so little of me?" Daniel reached for Amelia's hand, squeezing it in silent solidarity. That gesture told me everything. This wasn't just my daughter making a choice. This was him pulling strings. "You've always been controlling, Mom," Amelia said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Always needing to have the final say. I just wanted this one thing, our thing, without your shadow over it." Her words sliced through me, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes. She believed them because he had fed them to her, drip by drip, until she thought they were her own. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine with a steady, almost smug expression. "Amelia deserves happiness. Sometimes happiness comes from breaking away from old patterns." The way he said it with that slight pause wasn't accidental. Old patterns. He meant me. I was the pattern that needed breaking. I couldn't breathe. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I don't recognize either of you right now," I said, my voice shaking. "Amelia, you're my daughter. I raised you. And you—" I turned to Daniel, my glare hardening. "You've been in this family barely 2 years, and yet somehow, you've convinced her I'm the enemy." Amelia flinched, tears welling in her eyes. "Stop it, Mom. Just stop." But it was too late. The dam had broken. Daniel didn't lose his composure for a second. That, more than anything, terrified me. He sat there with a faint, unreadable smile, as though every word, every outburst, was part of a script he'd already written. In that moment, I saw it clearly. He wasn't just my son-in-law. He was the antagonist, the wedge between me and my daughter. And I was losing her to him. The night ended in silence. I went to bed feeling like the house I had built, the life I had nurtured, was cracking apart piece by piece. But one thing lingered in my mind. The photographs. Who had sent them? The envelope hadn't been mailed. No stamps. No markings. Someone had slipped it into my kitchen. Someone wanted me to see it. And that meant one terrifying truth. There was someone else involved. Someone watching. Someone who knew far more than I did. Lying awake in the darkness, I pressed my palms together, whispering silently to myself. I won't let him take her from me. I won't lose my daughter. Not like this. But a whisper of doubt crept in. What if I already have? I couldn't stop staring at the envelope, even days later. I'd tucked it away in the drawer of my nightstand, hidden under old receipts and forgotten bills, but it pulsed in my mind like a secret too loud to ignore. Those photographs weren't just proof of the wedding. They were a message. Someone wanted me to know what my daughter and Daniel were hiding. But why? That morning, the house felt colder than usual. The autumn wind rattled the windows, carrying with it the smell of damp leaves and smoke from a neighbor's chimney. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around me, but the chill I felt wasn't from the weather. When I walked into the kitchen, Amelia was already there, pouring cereal into a bowl. "Morning," she said without looking at me. Her tone was polite, but distant. I studied her, really studied her. She looked tired. Her once bright eyes were clouded, her shoulders slumped. She didn't look like a newlywed basking in joy. She looked like a woman carrying something heavy, too heavy for her small frame. "What has he done to you, Amelia?" I thought, but didn't say. Later that day, I met my neighbor, Carol, at the fence. Carol had always been the type to notice things. Too much, some would say. But today, her sharp eyes were a blessing. "You all right, Jenna? You've looked pale all week." "I'm fine," I replied automatically, then hesitated. For some reason, the words lodged in my throat. Carol's gaze softened, and I found myself whispering, "Amelia got married." She didn't even tell me. Her eyes widened. "Married? To that quiet one, Daniel?" I nodded. Carol pursed her lips, lowering her voice as though the hedges themselves had ears. "You should be careful. I've seen him out late at night, talking to people in cars that don't belong around here." Gave me a bad feeling. Her words struck me like a jolt. Could it be connected to the envelope? That evening, I tried again to reach Amelia. We were in the living room. She was scrolling through her phone while Daniel typed something furiously on his laptop. "Amelia," I began softly. "Sweetheart, are you happy?" Her head snapped up, eyes darting to Daniel before answering. "Of course, Mom. Why would you ask that?" "Because I see you," I said, my voice cracking. "I see the way you look down when you laugh, the way your smile doesn't reach your eyes. You're my daughter. I know you." Daniel closed his laptop slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Maybe it's you projecting, Jenna. You can't stand that Amelia's building her own life without you controlling it." His calmness infuriated me. He always had that unnerving way of twisting my words, making me feel like the unreasonable one. Amelia's lips parted as though she wanted to say something, but then she closed them again, looking away. My heart broke a little more. That night, alone in my room, I pulled the envelope back out. I spread the photographs across the bed, my fingertips brushing over each image as if they could give me answers. Who had taken them? Why give them to me? As I stared at the last photo, something caught my eye. A detail I had missed before. In the corner of one shot, behind Amelia and Daniel, there was a figure. Blurry, distant, but definitely there. A person standing in the shadows. Watching. A shiver ran down my spine. The next day, Carol stopped by again, holding a pie as an excuse. She leaned in and whispered while Amelia wasn't around, "I think someone's been watching your house. I saw a car parked down the street last night. Engine off, lights off. Just sitting there." Her words made my stomach twist. Was it connected to the shadowy figure in the photograph? I knew then that this wasn't just about a secret wedding. This was bigger, darker. And if I didn't get answers soon, I was afraid I might lose more than just my daughter's trust. That night, as I lay awake, I thought of Amelia as a little girl, her small hand wrapped in mine as we crossed the street, her bright laughter filling the air. She used to run to me for safety. Now she looked past me, leaning on him. But I wasn't going to give up. Not on her. Not on us. If Daniel thinks he can rewrite the story of this family, he doesn't know who he's up against. Still, the photographs haunted me. The figure in the shadows. The anonymous sender. Someone was out there pulling strings. And soon, I would have to decide whether to chase the truth or risk everything staying silent. I should have known life wouldn't just hand me the truth wrapped in a neat little bow. That's not how my story works. Every answer I found only cracked open another layer of mystery, like peeling an onion that made my eyes burn long before I reached the core. It started with Leo. He wasn't supposed to matter this much, not in the middle of my chaos, but somehow he slipped in. He showed up at my door with that same half-smirk he wore when we were kids, only now it didn't feel playful. It felt like he knew more than he was letting on. "Still chasing ghosts?" he asked, leaning against the doorway. "Not ghosts." "Truth," I shot back, though my voice sounded sharper than I meant. The truth. God, I was obsessed with it. And yet, part of me wondered if I was strong enough to handle it. But Leo wasn't the only complication. Mira had been calling me nonstop, insisting that she'd uncovered something that tied into my mother's disappearance. Her voice shook on the last call, like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. That's when my stomach twisted. Mira didn't scare easily. And then the twist. Late that night, I finally listened to the recording Mira left me. A rushed voicemail, words tumbling over each other, static crackling in the background. "Jenna, don't trust. Leo isn't who you think." The message cut out. I froze, the phone slipping slightly in my hand. Mira couldn't mean Leo. Not Leo. He'd been there when no one else was. He'd carried some of my pain like it was his own. But hadn't he been dodging questions? Changing subjects whenever I got too close to answers? My heartbeat was a drum in my chest. "Leo?" I whispered into the silence of my room, like speaking his name might summon him, might force the truth into the open. I replayed the message again and again, each time hearing new shades of fear in Myra's voice. The walls of trust I'd been building crumbled. Was Leo a friend, or part of the very darkness I was fighting? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of the unraveling. Like every person I thought I could lean on would eventually turn into another shadow, another threat. And yet, beneath the fear, something else stirred. Anger. If Leo had betrayed me, if anyone had betrayed me, then they'd learn the hard way that I wasn't the same Jenna anymore. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't just surviving. I was ready to fight back. The next few days felt like walking on glass. Every word, every look, every silence between Leo and me had sharp edges. I tried to act normal, tried to laugh at his stupid jokes, tried not to flinch when he brushed past me, but my body betrayed me. I was always half-turned, half-ready, watching him like prey, pretending not to notice the predator. He must have sensed it. "You've been quiet lately," he said one evening, tossing a pebble across the lake near the cabin. The sky was bruised purple, the kind of twilight that made everything look softer than it really was. I shrugged. "Just tired."
Lie.
My mind hadn't rested in days. Myra's voicemail played in my head on a loop, like background noise I couldn't switch off. Don't trust Leo. But until I had proof, I couldn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to see it myself. The cracks, the slip-ups, the truth beneath his practiced calm. He looked at me then, eyes dark, unreadable. "You know that if something's wrong, you can tell me." The words were gentle, but the way he said them made me shiver. It wasn't what he said, it was the way he watched me say nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air in the cabin was thick, humid with unspoken things. I heard Leo moving around downstairs, faint footsteps, and the soft creak of floorboards. When the clock hit 2:14 a.m., I slipped out of bed and followed the sound. He was on the phone, whispering. I couldn't make out every word, but one sentence cut through clear as glass. "Yeah, she still doesn't know." My stomach dropped. I stepped back too fast. The floor groaned. Leo's head turned instantly toward the noise. My heart stopped. For a moment, we were just two silhouettes in the dark, frozen in the same lie. "Jenna?"
His voice was calm, too calm.
"What are you doing up?" I forced a laugh, small and shaky. Couldn't sleep. Needed water. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." When I finally made it back upstairs, my hands were trembling. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the dark, every part of me whispering, "He knows that I know." But I wasn't ready to run.
Not yet.
If Leo was hiding something, I'd make him reveal it himself. So the next morning I made coffee, smiled like nothing had happened, played along. Because sometimes the only way to catch a liar is to let them believe you're still their favorite fool. I don't remember when pretending stopped being an act and started feeling like survival. By the time the sun rose that morning, I'd already rehearsed my smile a dozen times in the mirror, the same one Leo used to say he loved. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and that was part of the game. The day felt wrong from the start, the air too still, the light too pale. Even the birds sounded cautious. We drove into town together in silence, the sound of gravel under the tires the only proof that we were still moving forward. He said he needed to stop by his office for a few minutes. I waited in the car, watching him walk away, tall, composed, unreadable as ever. Something in me snapped then. I grabbed his phone from the console. I told myself I wasn't that person, paranoid, distrustful, but curiosity doesn't feel like a choice when your gut already knows the truth. The phone was locked. Of course it was. But what he didn't know was that I'd seen his passcode once. The day he thought I wasn't looking. 6194. The screen unlocked. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. Messages. Emails. A folder named Clients. But it wasn't about work. It was about me. There were pictures.
Notes.
A copy of the contract I'd signed months ago, the one that was supposed to be about a real estate deal. Only it wasn't. It was a setup. My name, my signature, and his tied to transactions I never approved. He'd been using me. Every word, every kind gesture, every late-night conversation. All of it, part of something I never saw coming. I scrolled further. That's when I saw her name. He'd emailed her 2 weeks ago. The message was short, a single line. She's close to finding out. Keep her quiet. My throat closed up. I didn't even realize I was crying until I saw the blur of my tears on the screen. I dropped the phone back into place, wiped my face, and waited. My pulse hammered so loud I could barely hear the world outside. When Leo returned, he smiled. You okay? I nodded.
Yeah.
Just tired. We drove home in silence again. But this time, I wasn't scared. I was done pretending. That night, when he stepped out for a call, I confronted Mira instead. She'd been avoiding me for days, no replies, no visits. But when I showed up at her apartment, she opened the door with the look of someone who'd already lost the battle. Jenna, she whispered, voice trembling. You shouldn't be here. I held up my phone, the email on the screen glowing like a wound. Tell me the truth. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she said quietly, he told me he'd ruin me if I said anything. I didn't know how to stop it. I felt the floor tilt under me. What did he do, Mira? Her eyes filled with tears. Everything. The contracts, the money, even your name. He made it all look like it was your idea. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All the fragments I'd been collecting, the whispers, the looks, the lies, finally fit together into one unbearable picture. Leo wasn't just lying. He was planning something far worse. I left without another word. The night air hit me like cold steel, and for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I had to do. Tomorrow, the game would end, and this time, I'd be the one holding the truth. The night I decided to confront Leo, the sky felt unnaturally still, the kind of silence that happens before a storm tears everything apart. I didn't plan what I would say. I didn't need to. Some truths don't need rehearsing. They burn their way out. Leo was sitting by the fire when I walked in, his laptop open, a glass of whiskey half-finished beside him. The flickering light cut sharp shadows across his face, making him look like two people at once, the man I loved and the stranger I discovered. He looked up, smiling. You're up late. I stepped closer, keeping my voice steady. So are you. Working on another contract? His fingers froze midair. What's that supposed to mean? I took a deep breath, pulled his phone from my pocket, and set it on the table between us. This, I said softly, is what it means. For a long moment he didn't speak, just stared at the phone, and then at me, his expression unreadable. Where did you get that? He asked finally, voice low, dangerous. The same place you hid everything else. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. Your emails. The fake deals. The lies. You used me, Leo. He sighed, leaned back in his chair, and for the first time, he didn't bother pretending. You weren't supposed to find out yet, he said simply. That sentence, calm, measured, hit harder than any shout ever could. I stepped closer. You were stealing from me.
From us.
Everything we built together. He cut me off with a quiet laugh. We didn't build anything, Jenna. I built it. You were just convenient. Convenient. The word cracked something open inside me. Every sacrifice, every compromise, every sleepless night trying to make things right, reduced to that single word. I felt heat rise in my chest. You could have told me the truth. And what? Watch you ruin everything with your conscience. His tone turned colder, more mechanical. You never understood the kind of world we live in. Sometimes you have to play dirty to win. But I wasn't playing, I whispered. I loved you. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a second I thought I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But it vanished as quickly as it came. This isn't love, Jenna. It's business. He reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. No, I said firmly. This is over. I sent copies of everything to my lawyer. The police will have them by morning. That's when his mask broke. Leo stood up so fast the glass fell, shattering across the floor. You don't know what you're doing, he snapped. You'll destroy us both. Maybe, I said quietly, but at least it'll be the truth. For a heartbeat, everything went still, just the crackle of fire and the sharp scent of spilled whiskey. Then his shoulders slumped. I never meant for it to go this far, he muttered. It was supposed to be easy. Clean. I stared at him, the man I once thought I'd grow old with, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Nothing about this was ever clean, I said. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. So what now? You turn me in? I don't have to, I said. You already did it to yourself. He laughed softly, a hollow, broken sound, and then just stood there, silent. The storm outside finally broke, rain slamming against the windows like applause for an ending no one wanted. When I walked out, I didn't look back. The firelight behind me flickered once, then faded. I wasn't sure where I was going, only that for the first time I was free. It's strange how quiet the world sounds when everything that held it together has come undone. The morning after I left Leo, the air felt clearer, lighter, even. Like the house itself was finally breathing again. The rain had washed the night clean, leaving puddles of silver across the driveway. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the soaked garden. For the first time in weeks, there was no pretense. No masks. Just me, and the silence I'd been too afraid to face. I thought freedom would feel loud, triumphant, but it didn't. It was quieter, heavier. It came with the weight of everything I'd lost, the marriage, the home we built, the woman I used to be when I still believed in him. Mira came by later that morning. She looked different, smaller somehow, guilt still hanging from her like a shadow. I heard what happened, she said softly, standing at the door. I didn't think you'd come, I replied. I almost didn't, she admitted. But I couldn't just disappear again. I nodded. Neither could I. We sat on the porch for a long time, not talking much. Sometimes words only make the ache sharper. She finally spoke. He's gone, you know. Packed up, left town last night. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. Instead, I said, he always hated the rain. Mira let out a quiet, sad laugh. You didn't deserve any of it, Jenna. Maybe not, I said. But I needed it. She looked at me, puzzled. I needed to see what I'd become. I continued. How easily I let someone else define my worth. Maybe Leo didn't just betray me. Maybe he showed me what happens when I stop standing up for myself. Mira reached for my hand. You're stronger than you think. I gave her a small smile. I'm just learning to start over. That night, I boxed up the last of Leo's things, the cufflinks, the photos, the ties that still smelled faintly of cedar. I didn't burn them. I didn't need to. Some endings don't need fire. They just need distance. When I went to bed, the house felt different, quieter, but not empty, like it was waiting for something new. Before falling asleep, I whispered to the dark, "Thank you." Not to Leo. Not to anyone else. To myself. For surviving. For walking away. And for the first time in a long, long while, I slept without fear. It's been a year since that night. A full circle of seasons: rain, bloom, sun, and fall, each one carrying a piece of me I thought I'd lost forever. I live in a smaller house now. The kind that hums with quiet rather than tension. Mornings begin with the sound of birds instead of silence, and I've learned that peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the absence of fear. The first few months were hard. I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there. I'd make 2 cups of coffee by habit. I'd scroll through old photos, pretending I was just checking something. But grief is stubborn. It doesn't leave when you ask it to. It leaves when you start filling the empty spaces with something new.
So I did.
I started writing again. Not emails. Not reports. Stories. Stories about women who lost themselves and found their way back. Stories that reminded me, and maybe others, that pain can be the beginning, not the end. Sometimes I read those stories out loud, recording them late at night when the world feels still. It's strange, isn't it? How a voice can heal. How sharing the hurt makes it hurt a little less. Mira visits often. She's different too, lighter. We don't talk about Leo much anymore. Some names lose their power when you stop saying them. Instead, we talk about books, recipes, and small joys, like the way sunlight hits the kitchen floor in the afternoon. I still wear my wedding ring sometimes, not out of longing, but remembrance. It's not a symbol of love anymore, but of survival. A reminder that even the most beautiful lies can teach you the truth about yourself. Last week, I walked past a couple arguing outside a cafe. The woman's voice trembled, and I saw my old self in her. The hesitation, the fear of losing someone who's already halfway gone. For a moment, I wanted to tell her what I've learned, that sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's reclaiming the part of yourself that forgot how to breathe. But I didn't interrupt. Some lessons, I realized, we have to learn alone. That night, I stood by the window again, watching the rain fall, softer this time, gentler. I smiled. Because for the first time in years, the rain didn't remind me of endings. It reminded me of growth. And as the thunder rolled faintly in the distance, I whispered to myself, "This is where I begin."